Now, I don't normally do these fantasy matchups, especially not when you're dealing with fighters who were not even around in the same era, because styles change, quality of opposition changes in a particular division over time. You know, training methods change. Sometimes in some eras, you're going to have 15, 20 round fights. In other eras, it's only 12 round fights. The quality of the management changes. Some fighters today are managed and they're able to become champions and look impressive because they're managed so well, rather than the fact that they're actually, rather than them being actually that good. So I don't normally do these kind of fantasy matchups because there's so many variables, especially when you're comparing fighters from different eras. But in this case, this is a fight. If I could have made a fight throughout history, this is one of the fights which I would have loved to have seen. Just for the action, just for the drama that could be in this fight. And that is a fight between Prince Naseem and Nonito Donaire. Now, Prince Naseem these days is remembered more for his defeat to Marco Antonio Barrera rather than what he achieved before that. And I think people do, not so much in the UK, I think it's a bit opposite in the UK, but certainly internationally, people in the States, I think they do, what's the word I'm looking for? Underrate Prince Naseem a little bit. I do believe they underrate him a bit. But at the same time, in the UK, I think people overrate Prince Naseem a little bit. It is true that Prince Naseem was given a boxing lesson by Marco Antonio Barrera. Absolute boxing lesson. And I personally don't believe that Prince Naseem could have ever defeated Marco Antonio Barrera. I think Barrera just had his number. He knew exactly how to box him. Also, Floyd Mayweather at the time, he was a super featherweight and Prince Naseem was a featherweight. He called out Prince Naseem. I think Floyd would have destroyed Prince Naseem. I don't think Prince Naseem had any chance of beating a Floyd Mayweather. Sorry, I think Floyd was just too big, too defensively sound, ridiculously long arms. I don't see Prince Naseem being able to get close, and I see Floyd just picking him apart and probably stopping him. But anyway, this matchup here between Prince Naseem and Nonito Donaire, both of the guys are of a similar size, but I think Prince Naseem hits a bit harder. Prince Naseem really had tremendous punching power. I think he hits a bit harder than Nonito Donaire. Don't get it twisted. Nonito Donaire has more than enough power to hurt and drop and maybe knock out Prince Naseem. But Prince Naseem has got enough power to hurt Donaire. I believe Prince Naseem hit a lot harder than Rigondeaux, who we saw hurt Nonito Donaire. Yeah, he's also a southpaw, though Prince Naseem's a switch hitter. He can switch from lefty to righty at a drop of a hat. Donaire, I believe, is a bit taller than Prince Naseem, and he has more correct boxing skills. But the problem with Donaire is his defense. I mean, neither of these guys has got a great defense, neither Prince Naseem or Donaire. But Prince Naseem's unpredictability made him a little bit more difficult to catch. Whereas Donaire's really dare to be hit. Even with straight shots and basic shots, you can catch Donaire. Whereas Prince Naseem was a little bit more awkward to catch. Even in the fights where he did get caught, like the Kevin Kelly fight, Kelly still missed a lot in that fight. And when he missed, Prince Naseem stepped in and made him pay. Yeah? So, personally, if I had to pick between Prince Naseem and Donaire, I would pick Prince Naseem to beat Nonito Donaire. I just think his awkward style, unorthodox, the closest comparison in terms of an opponent who Donaire has fought would be Vic Darchinyan, who has a similar kind of style to Prince Naseem, but he's really a very poor man's Prince Naseem. He's not as big as Prince Naseem, don't have as longer arms, don't hit anywhere near as hard, just nowhere near as good as Prince Naseem. And as you saw in the rematch with Donaire, he gave Donaire a few problems. I know Donaire handled him fairly well in the first fight, but again, Prince Naseem's a hell of a lot bigger than Darchinyan. Darchinyan really is, like I say, the fake man, the fake Prince Naseem, the poor man's Prince Naseem. I personally think Prince Naseem would beat Nonito Donaire. Not sure about stopping him because Donaire's quite tough himself. It's quite tough, but I think Prince Naseem would have his way with Nonito Donaire, and if he didn't stop him, I think he'd win a fairly comfortable points decision. And again, these days, especially in the States, I think people kind of underrate Prince Naseem a little bit. I do think he's better than people make out to be. If you look at his career before the Barrera fight, he had fought some decent competition in there. You know, he did beat Tom Johnson, who was a champion at the time. Maybe not the best champion, maybe not at his prime, but he still held a belt, and he still was one of the top guys in the division. He did knock out Wilfredo Vasquez. That was a good performance. There was a lot of guys that he fought, a lot of the top contenders. Obviously, Wayne McCulloch, he beat him handily. A lot of top guys Prince Naseem did beat, and he beat him comfortably. Knocked a lot of guys out early in fights. All right, so I do think he's slightly underrated in the US. Here in the UK, I hear a lot of people saying that he's the greatest British fighter of all time. That he would have beat Barrera if he'd stayed with Brendan Ingle. I don't believe none of that. I think Barrera always had his number and Barrera would always beat him. Personally, but we'll never know who would win these fantasy matchups. We'll never know if Prince Naseem could have beat Barrera had he been with Brendan Ingle or not, because obviously those things are never going to happen. You know, in boxing, you only know what the truth is when the two guys step in the ring. All the speculation and all that other kind of stuff is just conjecture. It's irrelevant, really. The only thing that matters is what takes place in the ring. So when you're dealing with fantasy matchups, none of us can ever know what's really going to take place. All right, but if it did, in a fantasy world, take place, a fight between Prince Naseem and Nonito Donaire, I'll be taking Prince Naseem. I'll be rolling with the Prince in that fight. But drop your comments below. Who do you think would win out of Prince Naseem and Nonito Donaire? I'll also be doing some other fantasy matchups probably today. All right, it's a bit of fun. I'll drop some fantasy matchup videos later on today and probably for the rest of the week. So yeah, drop your comments below. This is Hatman. I'm out.